The town of Erie is located on the west bank of Coal Creek, about 2 miles southeast of its junction with Boulder Creek, and is about 15 miles east of the beautiful Rocky Mountains. Erie was incorporated as a town on November 16, 1874. It was named after Erie, Pennsylvania, because the name was short and distinct, and Erie, Pennsylvania was the birthplace of Reverend R.J. Van Valkenburg. He was one of the founders of the town. At the close of the Civil War, he left Pennsylvania seeking a renewal of his health. After wandering through Wyoming and Colorado, he married Cordelia Briggs and settled in Erie. In 1867, he organized the Methodist Church in Erie. He was also the Justice of the Peace for 26 years. Note the Reverend Van Valkenburg is advertising in the Erie Independent newspaper published in 1894. The town of Erie is made up of people from England, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Sweden, Germany, France, Italy, Czechoslovakia, Greece, Mexico, Poland, Japan, and many other countries. Many of these people migrated to Colorado when gold was discovered, then turned to farming or mining. John Marshall was originally from Scotland and brought his family to Erie from Maryland in a covered wagon in 1883. He settled on a farm north of Erie. John Marshall's son, James, started a drilling business in Erie in 1916 and drilled many of the core test holes to test for coal mining in many of the water wells in the area. This is the Wise Homestead in Canfield, 1 mile west of Erie. Mr. Oliver Wise came from Wisconsin in 1870, opened a blacksmith shop, and built a log cabin, which was replaced with this frame house, still standing at the rear of the lovely brick home shown here. His son William became a newspaperman and opened a coal mine, a general store, a flour mill, and operated a post office. He was also a member of the Colorado State Legislature. This is the first frame house in Erie. Another early home in Erie, owned by Mr. Padron. Note the early Victorian features, such as the turret and the designs above the window. Another early homestead, the Jerosha Ranch. In the 1890s, there were many lodges in Erie, the Knights of Pythias, the IOOF, the GO of Orient, and the Masons. Shown here are the Rebeccas, about 1902. An early picture of the Women's Club of Erie. There was a brass band in Erie in 1875. The Marching Band of Erie around the 1880s. Coal was first discovered on a hill east of Erie in 1866 when Captain Ira Austin opened the first mine. By 1875, there were 5 coal mines. About 150 men were employed in and around the mines. At first, men were paid $3 a day, then $6. Now it's over $25 a day. The early working conditions were poor. The mines were dirty, with poor ventilation and cave-ins and poisonous gases, loose rock and coal, and the ease of falling off into the mine shaft made mining a hazardous job. In 1913, a typical accident was the death of John Helwig, who was overcome by gases which caused him to fall to the bottom of the shaft. The National Fuel Company First Aid Team. Some names from left to right are Mr. Regner, Houston, Swallow, and Turney. A strike was called in 1922 in Boulder and Weld counties for higher wages and better working conditions. 14 mines were shut down. Governor Shoup called in the National Guard, shown here at Puritan Camp. This strike was unsuccessful and ended by the militia. On this barren field between Erie and Lafayette, there was once a mine and a company town called Columbine. There were company houses, company stores, a gambling hall, and a dance hall. Gunmen were stationed at the gates when the famous 1927 strike began. About 200 to 600 men, women, and children were demonstrating for higher wages and better working conditions. The crowd rushed through the gates. Someone fired a shot, and 6 men lay dead on the ground. The miners were killed by state guards. The guards were found innocent of charges, since the jury said the people were trespassing on private property. This is an old stock certificate of the State Coal Company, 50 shares at $1 a share. How much would this be worth today? In more recent times, there were 6 active coal mines in the Erie area: the Boulder No. 3, Eagle, Imperial, Lincoln, Sterling, and Washington, shown here. It was operated by the Clayton Coal Company from 1940 to 1967. The Lincoln Mine, also operated by the Clayton Coal Company, is 52 miles east and a half mile south of Erie, and was opened in 1949. Total coal production until 1963 was 1.15 million tons. This is the night shift beginning the descent into the mine. The Lincoln closed recently. The Eagle Mine, operated by the Imperial Coal Company, was about 3.5 miles east of Erie and was opened in 1939. The office, the tipple. The first shaft was sunk in 1939. The shaft shoots down about 376 feet, then branches straight out about 1.5 miles in every direction. Much of the coal was delivered to nearby public service company in Denver and Boulder. The federal government bought coal for Lowry Air Force Base, and small amounts were bought by domestic consumers. Mr. Charles Reese, superintendent, told us that every man was required to carry a safety lamp and a methane gas detector. A tunnel in the Eagle Mine. A miner is boring a hole to insert dynamite. A tunnel car of coal. In the late 19th century, mules were used to haul coal. The Eagle Mine closed in 1980. The Imperial Mine is located 3 miles east and 1 mile north of Erie. It opened in 1927 and closed in 1972. Briggs Street in 1890. Here it is again in 1920. The fire hose team of the 1890s. There was a post office in Erie in 1876 with Thomas McClure as the postmaster. The old post office. The former town hall, built in 1930. It became the police station later. Both the town hall and police station are located in the former Lincoln School building today. This was the Erie Market. It used to be called Hunter's Store, built in 1889. It is known as the IOOF building today. A mustard factory. The Erie Hotel was built in 1873 and is still standing. It had 14 rooms. The front of the building was the lobby, with gambling room next to it. The site of Elsie's Drugstore opened in 1912 and closed in 1972, and Mr. Elsie, the town's only druggist, died. The lumber yard, where the Opera House was located. There's a band coming down the street in the 1890s. If you look closely, you can see it. Erie was a stage stop before a railroad was established here. Stagecoaches came from Fort St. Vrain. Erie had a railroad before Boulder and Longmont. The Boulder Valley Railroad presently the Union Pacific, was completed in January 1871. Erie was the terminal for 2 years, until the railroad was extended to Boulder. For a number of years, there were 3 churches in Erie: the Methodist, the Catholic, and the Presbyterian. The Catholic Church on Main Street, built in 1890. The Methodist Church today, founded by the Reverend Van Valkenburg. The old Presbyterian Church. The first cemetery was located on Holbrook Street. 74 graves without markers. Many died from the flu epidemic and the Black Death. The site of the earliest school, the Idaho Creek School, District Number 1, on Boulder County Line Road near Erie. It opened in 1861. The first school in Erie was held in the first town hall on Wells Street and the Coffin House on Pierce Street. Mr. Stoddard's class, the first high school class of Erie. The first Lincoln School was a 4-room frame building, built in 1881. The newer Lincoln School was made of brick and built in 1907. Miss Stella Lee's class. She taught in the Lincoln School for 19 years. The Erie basketball team in the 1930s. In 1929, the Erie girls basketball team won the state championship by defeating Los Animas. The Erie Five were Sims, Gilson, Nelson, Brock, and Kohler. The high school graduating class of 1933. The cast of a play given sometime in the 1920s. A school play, Rose of the Blue Danube, 1936. George Graham, an Erie native, recalls horse racing, baseball games, dances, roller skating, as well as school plays. The Erie football team, 1957. Note, Erie beat Frederick 44-0. Erie beat Estes 43-6. Erie beat Evans 51-0, and Erie beat Berthoud 55-0. Erie High School today, 1980. In 1921, Erie had a big flood. They said the waters came as high as the counters in the stores. In 1969, Erie had another bad flood, which caused the schools to close so students could help sandbag Coal Creek. The new fire department building today. The new post office today. In 1974, the history class of Erie High School made this slide tape show and wrote a second edition to the History Book of Erie in preparation for the 1974 Erie Centennial. A Centennial Parade and Centennial Ball, attended by the Lieutenant Governor Ted Strickland, were some of the highlights. The people of Erie elected Mary Payne as their Centennial Queen, and their Centennial King was George Graham. The students who worked on this project would like to thank the St. Vrain Valley School District for a grant and the Erie Centennial Commission for helping to make this history project a reality.